John Felt here, and this is the Blue Water Outlook Weekly Weather Briefing for the 14th of January 2024. Wow, what a really busy week last week. We had a little bit of everything, really bitterly cold, record cold, heavy rain, flooding, severe storms. We had snow and ice and blizzard conditions, just about everything, as we've had 3 winter storms traverse the U.S. over the last 10 days. This week, we'll still have active weather. It won't be as active as last week, but that cold will be lingering. A lot to talk about. Let's get started. Well, this was one of the winter storms last week, and you can see all the snow it brought over parts of Iowa, several feet of snow, and moved up into the Great Lakes region. We also had, on the warm side of this system, a lot of heavy rain. And you might remember I put out a post about East Coast atmospheric rivers. I don't talk about that a whole lot. That was sort of interesting to me, showing how we can get that mid and high level moisture pushing in off the Gulf, or off the Atlantic, and off the Gulf as well. And what that does is it enhances the rainfall potential. So we had 2 inches of rain in areas of yellow. We had 5 inches of rain in areas of red. So lots of heavy rain, lots of heavy snow. Now we're going to have the extreme cold, and this area of high pressure, Arctic high, pushed in from Canada, and it's all the way down over, looks like around Topeka right now, and it's resulting in really cold weather, wind chill warnings in many areas that have been posted. Many records set. These were low temperatures this morning, Sunday morning. Look at our wind chills. I saw a minus 58 here. Yes, that's minus 58. And these are the actual temperatures. So most of Iowa, minus 12 to minus 17. Cold air, negative readings as far south as Kansas City and St. Louis. So really, really cold Arctic air. Now the big picture from the precipitation, you can see in addition to the eastern part of the U.S., we also had heavy rain along the west coast and the higher elevations. Remember I talked about the deformation zone where the heavy snow would be? Well, you can sort of see it here in the rainfall or the precipitation estimates. That's where our heavy snow fell. So you can sort of see it right through here. Now, as far as where the snow fell last week, well, take a look at this here, the higher elevations of the west. Here's our band of heavy snow, and it was a widespread heavy snow band. Also the northeast U.S. and also the Appalachians. So this is where we have snow on the ground as of this morning, and the low sun angle and the Arctic air, I don't think we're going to have much melting of this until maybe late in the week. Now my mind's on starting to think a little bit about spring flood melt and flooding, and one of the things just sort of point out here is we don't have much snow in this area, and this is where for spring snow melt, that's really where we need to be focused on, because what we have here is once it moderates, and I'll be talking about that, it'll be melting from all directions here. So when you get these bands that are sort of detached from really the cold source areas where the snow is seasonal, that's not as significant from a spring snowmelt perspective as if we'd have snow over a wider area. So that's just sort of one of my thoughts as far as spring snowmelt. But I got a lot to say on that, and I will be saying a lot as we go over the next couple months. Okay, anything in brown, rivers are frozen, and they are solidly frozen. We have a lake, little very small lake in front of our house, and that flash froze overnight. I'm in St. Louis, and I don't think last year it even froze at all, and it just woke up this morning and it was covered in ice. So you can see where the highest stream flow corresponds with that heavy rain that we had last week. Also in the Ohio River Valley, and you know, I talked about low flows since summer. What I'm going to show you here, here's Evansville. This is the Ohio River, Cairo on the Ohio River. So there's a big push of water. Look at this. This went from, looks like it went from almost, was that very low flow here, all the way up to action stage. And Memphis here went from a negative level up to about 14. So really a big pulse of water has gotten in here, and that's good for recharging those river levels. So here's our temperature departures last week. That's changing a lot at this current time. That's a weekly average. So what we have here is we have this Greenland high pattern entrenched, and that's a cold pattern. This is a Pacific trough that we had in December, and it looks like as we get in the period, let's see, December 20 or January 21st through maybe the 28th, it looks like we might have a brief return to that Pacific trough, and that's some milder air. So that's a possibility that we could have going from this unusually cold to some moderation here as we get into this type pattern. After that, look at this, all the North American weather regimes are sort of near the center here, so it's going to be a little bit hard to say what's going on. And when we get that, when we're right in the middle of one of these weather regimes entrenched, the weather tends to settle down. When we're in between them, it can be a little bit more active, and I think the extended forecast shows that. So here's our Greenland high, and what that has done is that has taken the polar vortex and displaced it, pushed it south. That's why we have so much cold air. By the end of the week, late week, we still have a dip in the jet stream, but it's sort of sliding off to the east now. So that center of cold air will be moving from the northwest U.S. gradually over to the east. And then I talked about that Pacific trough weather regime possibly be returning. Here's January 22nd, and we get moderation. So in some areas that have been so brutally cold, there could be some moderation ahead. But we won't see it for a while. Next 5 days, really, really cold, record cold. Next 5 days after that, it lingers, but it gradually moderates towards the end of the month. Okay, so that's temperature. Let's talk about rain and snow. Well, we have this stationary boundary right here, and the cold air has worked in behind it, but we still have mild air above it, and that means we are going to get some freezing rain and then into it a little bit some snow. So other than that, maybe the Pacific Northwest, some enhancement of snow. Other than that, like I said, a pretty quiet week because we're entrenched in that weather regime. But along that boundary in here, you can sort of see in the cold air, we're going to have some snow all the way up to the northeast U.S., right down through here. And we're going to have some mostly light freezing precipitation, but there will be some spots where there will be some impacts. And finally, here's the extended outlook. Let's focus on week 2. There's our lingering cold. We moderate in week 2, and here's the action. We get some more action here, probably rain at this time. So this week, I guess if I had to summarize it, extremely cold and stable, most areas, not all. Week 2, moderation, but maybe more active. And finally, let's review the weather risks this week. Extreme cold, and then we're going to have some snow over the northeast U.S. and parts of the south as well as some ice. Anyway, that's this week's weather briefing. Stay bundled up, and I'll be talking with you again next weekend. Take care.